Anti-fraud advocate Marilyn Marks is worried Colorado's first general election under its new mail-in voting system could be a mess. Colorado is the third state after Oregon and Washington to have all-mail elections. Also new this year, same-day registration without a photo ID.
I am as worried about undue influence as I am straight-up fraud.
Midterms, voter fraud, attack advertising, all of this is, of course, secondary to covering the news when we as a nation are also faced with the prospect of yet another Terminator film and the Discovery Channel realizing there is nothing else they can dig up that's weird about Alaska. This is the life we journalists face each and every day. Pleasure to welcome into Midpoint veteran Washington correspondent, Emmy Award winner, author, and currently host of The Lead with Jake Tapper on CNN, of course. Jake Tapper joins us. Jake, thanks so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Got to make sure we don't go after that fifth Terminator film, right? That could be disastrous no matter where we go.
I mean, if it follows the trajectory of the Rocky films, I suppose. I mean, because, look, the Terminator films were great. They were great, the first and the second one. And then, was it the third one where when he melted?
That would have been the third one where he was taking them to the facility in northern Colorado, I think, somewhere. It was the back in time. You get lost. The timelines just lose you completely. All of a sudden, Schwarzenegger's 20 years old again.
Well, for me, it's the jumping the shark moment was when he was melting and at the end, and he put his thumb. This is when the Terminator was a good guy all of a sudden, so I think that might have been two.
That would be two.
He put his thumb up. Remember that? He gave, like, the Fonz A, and it was just, then he melted, and it was just... All right, no more.
All right,
more films.
Let's get to it. Yeah, exactly. Let's go ahead and get to the hard stuff here. Thumbs up, then. That's what some people want to say with regard to this whole issue about voter fraud. There are some people saying, absolutely. The evidence is there. You can see it. There's a percentage here. There's 2% here, 3% here. Others say, absolutely not. It's a waste of time. We don't need to be talking about it. Are we missing the boat, though, in not just digging as hard and fast as we can to find out what the real truth is to all this?
Look, I mean, obviously, voter fraud is a real thing. We have seen it. We have seen people be convicted of it. It would be great if there was some way where everybody could, some sort of bipartisan effort to do two things. One is make sure that there isn't any voter fraud, and two, make sure that people who are legal voters have access to the ballot box. And the problem I see is that this is one of these issues that mainly partisans mainly seem to be the ones talking about it and trying to do something about it on one way or the other in the state capitals and here in Washington, D.C. To me, you know, I fancy myself as something of a middle-of-the-road person. I don't want there to be illegal voting, but I also don't want people to be denied the right to vote, and I don't understand why there can't be some sort of bipartisan effort to do that, to do both.
That's just it. Is it underreported, in your opinion? I think it is.
You know what? I did the ballot watch desk for ABC News back in 2004. It's not an issue I'm completely 100% read it on right now. I've been focused on our election coverage and the Senate races and the governor's races. I mean, look, those who say that there's no such thing as ballot fraud, that's not true. There is ballot fraud. Is it underreported? I probably would need to do a little bit more research before I give you an educated answer on that.
All right, no worries. Let's go to the midterms then. One race in your mind, the one right now that you find the most interesting?
Oh, there are so many.
Got to make you pick one.
If I had to pick one right this second, I mean, I find the Kansas race fascinating just because of the intrigue of this independent candidate, where he came from, Democrats doing so much to get their candidate off the ballot so that this independent could rise in the polls. That's one that I think is really interesting. I'm definitely going to be watching. I'm violating the rules of your question already, but I'm definitely going to be watching North Carolina, Iowa, Colorado. I mean, it's a great election cycle. So many races where I have no idea who's going to win.
We have questions that we ask, and we always are ready, though, as the guys on TV asking the questions for people to go off on different lines of thinking. So there's no worries about that at all. You can go off wherever you go. The Republicans right now, there seems to be a thinking that perhaps they're even a little overconfident. We see so many numbers, and we've seen them here today as well, that say they're up in almost every single race, maybe down a little bit here, but are the Republicans perhaps being a little overconfident, number one, and number two, what do they got to lose if they are?
Well, I don't think they're being overconfident. I have had conversations with a number of Republican officials about these races. Most recently, just in the few minutes before, I called you for this interview, and I can tell you they're not overconfident. This is a bunch of, just as the Democrats are, these are a bunch of worriers and people who are concerned, and they feel good. They feel like they've worked really hard. They've changed their models in terms of getting out the vote. They've changed the ways of reaching out to voters. They feel like they have run better races and better candidates this cycle, 2014, than they did in 2012. That the candidates have been more disciplined, that the candidates have not had the kind of gaffes that we saw Republican candidates making 2 years ago. But I would not say that they're overconfident at all. I would say that they're not gonna pop the champagne until the votes come in from Alaska and Hawaii, and they're 100% sure that the majority in the Senate is theirs, and that the governor's races they want to win go the way they win. I think it's entirely likely that there will be at least one, if not two, runoffs in the Senate races in Louisiana and possibly also in Georgia. So I'm not sensing any cockiness.
With the president considering the executive action regarding immigration, do you think, regardless of what happens, this is a fait accompli? We see so many notes and so many stories about the plans, the ideas. It is all set and ready to go, that no matter what happens on Tuesday, this executive action on immigration is going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen immediately, but I do think that the president's going to take an executive action when it comes to immigration reform, one way or the other, immigration, whatever you want to call it. I do think that that's going to happen. I don't know how sweeping it's going to be. I think that it's going to be, but I think there's going to be something he does without question. And I'll tell you something also. Let me just say this. I think that there are Republicans here in Washington, D.C. who think that even if everything goes great for the GOP on Tuesday, it could be a sugar high. It could last 2 years because in 2016, the terrain, these Republicans and many Democrats feel, will be much more favorable to a Democrat winning the White House, propelled to a degree by Latino voters who might not turn out as much in this midterm election as historically they have not, and young voters as well, and female voters, young unmarried female voters as well, but that Republicans might sweep in 2014, but 2016, a lot of them could lose their seats because of a strong Democratic candidate and a very different terrain in election years, presidential election years, than in midterm election years, and immigration reform will be part of that. And I don't think that is incidental to President Obama.
And there you go, Jake. Unfortunately, we're all out of time. Talk to you again. Thank you.